this. It doesn't really matter what they do. So I'm in court now in 4 weeks' time. I'm in court on October the 13th. I face prison again. I face prison for refusing to let the police have access to my mobile phone. That's what I face custody for, because they detained me under terrorism legislation because they were worried of what we were doing. Now here's the gutting thing, and I know lots of people say there's a division on the right. Now when this happened, there was a big call from people for Nigel Farage to talk about the abuse of power. Nigel sat on an interview and said, fact, you can get the video, because all the reform supporters, look, I get it, right? You want him to be successful. But from my point of view, I've been detained under terrorism legislation. I've been held and then I've been prosecuted under terrorism legislation because as a journalist, I refused to give them access to my sources of information. That's it. That's the brunt of it. Nigel gave an interview saying there was nothing to do with terrorism and it was to do with a dodgy passport. Again, it's just a lie. It's just a lie. And it's a lie that everyone's going to watch unfold in 4 weeks when I stand trial. I stand trial without a jury again, okay? And I could be put back in prison till Christmas. Worst case, really. So I face that, but it doesn't matter what they do. And even if they convict me on this case, it's going to dig their hole, not mine. I'm not apologising. I'm proud that I didn't give you my PIN code. I didn't give you my PIN code because I promised each survivor for exploitation that I will protect what they tell me. And there's lots of information that those survivors don't want the police having. Now, my job as a journalist and them as sources of information are protected. So fuck off. You're not having it. And I told them that straight away. I had to, at that same time, give a 6-hour interview where I didn't have a right to remain silent. Now, when terrorism legislation is brought in the UK, did any of you want this sort of legislation to target people like me for this? No, we want you to detain jihadists, you mugs. We want you to stop them, not stop us for talking about them or embarrassing the government with documentaries. Again, so at the minute, people are asking for a date for the demonstration. I've said I think London Hyde Park. I don't think it's anything we need to rush because we want world leaders present, which we're in discussions with now. This next event can be bigger. It can be better. There's a lot of work, but it can. The British public have now London's been chosen, not by me, but by you. You, the public who turned up. You, the public who refused to be silenced. You, the public who are now having your voice echo around the world. Think about that. Our voice and our message is echoing in every corner of this globe from that event on Saturday. In TikTokers, in influencers that have never got involved in politics are all making videos about this event. We are shifting the open window so quick, so fast. We had a vision 24 months ago when we sat down to form this movement. Yeah, and it was, again, I can take credit, but it wasn't just me. There was a vision of lots of people, and we spent months going back and forward from those people. From Katie Hopkins to Cole Benjamin to Mayor 2C to Lawrence Fox to Calvin Robertson, Jeff Taylor. I hope I'm not forgetting people, yeah? But let's just say a hell of a lot of people. And we spent months and months and months working on a vision. And the vision was, change the culture, you change the politics. I'm pretty sure after 24 months we can sit and look now at how politics have shifted. The mood of the nation has shifted. We've been totally successful in our goal already. Now, to do that in politics, to have that effect in politics, well, it took hundreds of millions of pounds and 10 years, I believe. But by changing it culturally on the street, within communities, and I still do have, which I'm going to do, I didn't get to give my closing speech. There was a lot of my speech I didn't give, and that speech, which is important, was on what can we do now. I will detail that properly, but to be honest, I've been drained and I've continued doing podcasts and interviews.
Britain is standing at a crossroads. On one side, hundreds of thousands of people have taken to the streets, flags raised high, demanding change and respect for their country. On the other side, the Prime Minister warns that something dark is being stirred in our society. The real question is this: who is truly driving division in Britain today? And what does it mean for the future of our nation? Let's unpack this moment together. But before we dive deep, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Last weekend, London became the stage for one of the largest patriotic demonstrations in modern British history. Over 150,000 people marched under the banner of Unite the Kingdom. Union Jacks and flags of St. George filled the streets. For those who attended, this wasn't just about waving a flag. It was about pride, identity, and deep frustration with a political class that no longer seems to hear the voices of ordinary people. But instead of treating this as a wake-up call, Prime Minister Keir Starmer chose a very different approach. Rather than acknowledging the growing divide between the government and the people, he launched a fierce attack on the leaders and voices connected to the march. His sharpest words were directed at Tommy Robinson, and even extended to figures like Elon Musk, who addressed the crowd via video link. Starmer accused these populist voices of exploiting national symbols to spread fear and division. In his words, these figures are casting a dark shadow of fear and violence across society. He added in an interview with The Sun that the English flag is a symbol of pride, not hate, and that it's shameful when people use it, as he claims, to whip up anger. But here's the contradiction. In the very same breath, Starmer admitted that he understands the anger fueling these protests. He acknowledged that millions of Britons feel like the country they love doesn't work for them anymore. On one hand, he concedes they have a point. On the other hand, he paints the people leading this movement as dangerous radicals threatening democracy itself. And this is where the story becomes bigger than just Tommy Robinson. What we're really seeing is an attempt to delegitimize a movement that is growing larger and louder every single week. Starmer is framing this as a battle for the heart and soul of the nation, trying to present himself as the sensible leader while painting ordinary patriots as extremists. His language was strikingly sharp. He claimed that when populist politicians, convicted criminals, and foreign billionaires take to the stage to encourage violence, make racist comments, and threaten our democracy, it casts a dark shadow across our society. That was a direct shot at Robinson, but also at Elon Musk, who didn't mince his words when he warned, "Violence is coming whether you like it or not. You either fight back or you die." Now, those are strong words from Musk, words that certainly raise eyebrows, but they also reflect a sense of desperation felt by many about Britain's trajectory. While Starmer focused on condemning the rhetoric, he largely ignored the reality on the ground. Reporters from GB News spoke directly with people at the march. And here's the thing, these weren't extremists. They weren't there calling for violence. They were ordinary citizens, many of them working class, some of them immigrants themselves, who said they're fed up with the direction of the country. One man told reporters, "I'm fed up with the lack of freedom of speech. I'm fed up with the constant arrivals of people in small boats." Another, who had integrated fully into British society, said he attended because he respected British culture and wanted to see unity, not division. Robinson, of course, responded to Starmer's attacks in his usual blunt style. He said, "He better be worried. I will successfully watch his government collapse whilst tweeting." And this wasn't a fringe rally. The list of speakers included prominent figures from across Europe. French politician Eric Zemmour, Danish People's Party leader Morten Messerschmidt, German MP Peter Bystron, Polish MEP Dominik Tarczynski, Belgian activist Philip de Winter, and even London mayoral candidate Ant Middleton. Whatever you think of these names, their presence makes one thing very clear. This movement is not isolated to Britain. It's part of a wider European backlash against mass immigration, censorship, and globalist politics. What stood out most to observers was the diversity of people at the demonstration. GB News pointed out that ethnic minorities were marching alongside white working-class Britons. They weren't there to divide the country. They were there to demand respect for their culture, their freedoms, and their flag. A flag that, in recent years, many have felt shamed out of flying. So who is truly stoking division here? The people in the streets? Frustrated, yes, but peaceful? Or a prime minister who dismisses them as pawns of criminals and foreign billionaires? For many, Starmer's rhetoric sounded less like leadership and more like demonization. At the core of all this is something very simple: respect. Respect for the flag, respect for free speech, and respect for the millions of ordinary Britons who feel abandoned by those in power. Starmer can attack Tommy Robinson all day long. He can throw Elon Musk's name into the mix to make it sound more dangerous. But the reality is this: over 150,000 people marched in London because they feel ignored. Unless the government starts listening, that number will only grow. And this movement is not going away. Meanwhile, in a separate but related development, Nigel Farage stepped back into the spotlight with a new migration plan that could have major consequences for British politics. At a Reform UK press conference, Farage unveiled proposals